Hello and welcome to Hamdom Thoughts. I'm your host, Dennis, FCC licensed amateur extra radio operator, call sign AD6DM. In today's episode, episode 7, we talk with a guy with some real ham radio grit. This is Eric, K0EAP. Eric is one of the first people I know of to popularize Lunchtime on the air, operating his portable antenna and CW rig from parking lots during his office lunch breaks. He's an accomplished triathlete and world traveler. Eric is also always trying to make a radio contact whenever I see him on Twitter. Let's get to know more about this persistent ham. Stay tuned. All right. Hey, Eric. It's great to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Wonderful, Dennis. Thank you very much. It's actually an honor to be here. I've been loving the episodes so far, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, you're one of the few, or the only person to give me some anchor messages that I've included in some of the past podcasts.
Basically a stalker. Yeah.
But I appreciate that. I wish a lot more people would use that functionality because it's a great way to get some feedback and also just comments. It does. I mean, even if someone were to leave a message and say, I think it's horrible, I probably would include it just to have that feedback, you know?
It's a very cool feature. I think I've left two messages on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty neat. I like it.
Yeah. But again, it's great to meet you, or great to actually see you face to face.
Yes,
I think
likewise.
I've watched you on your videos, and we've always been in touch on Twitter. I look for your lids notifications and try to get you on. I also have you on Ham Alert.
Okay.
I try to get you whenever you're on CW. Like I was saying earlier, you're really persistent. I know you to be someone who's very out there all the time. And I know that, COVID happened and there was a little bit of a damper put on all of us in terms of operating and getting out there every day. But I still see you active on Twitter saying, I was trying to hit this SOTA, chase this person, or your successes here and there, various contests.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Tell us about yourself. What's your story?
Well, my ham radio story started in 2008. I actually worked for the state of Minnesota, and at the time, I'm an IT guy for the state, and I worked for the Department of Human Services, and they had a nuclear preparedness team. Ooh. Which sounds a little bit scarier than it really is, but basically what they would do is they would do mock drills at the 2 nuclear power plants near the Twin Cities here and practice evac, setting up, testing sites and that kind of thing. And part of that was they needed ham radio operators. Oh, okay. And so I thought, what a cool way to get involved. I did that. I went and got my tech license, and I was part of that team for a few years and did a few of the evacuation drills and was a radio operator, each time. And it was really fun. And so that's kind of how I got into radio. And then, I took a break from it because quite honestly, the technician stuff, repeater stuff, for me only went so far. And my wife and I had made a couple of moves, and, I just kind of got away. And then, 2016, I got back into it pretty hard, and I got my general in 2016. And then a few months later in 2017, I got my extra. And that's really when it all took off. As soon as I was on HF and actually working stations, that were interesting and not just, the guy across the street basically from a repeater.
Was there any kind of triggering event or catalyst that made you think I need to get on HF and give that a try?
Yeah, for sure. I really wanted to chase DX, and quite honestly, I had just learned about the SOTA program, and
Oh,
I thought
okay.
it was super cool, and I wanted to chase SOTA and try to activate when I could. Living in Minnesota, I am at a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't have mountains per se. We have large hills, but any of the activatable mountains for me is about 2 hours in each direction.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
more of a weekend type thing. So yeah, so that was it. I really wanted to chase DX, and I wanted to get into the SOTA aspect of it, and whatever else came my way. But that was primarily the trigger for sure.
And how's that been since 2017, I would guess? A lot of DX. Do you have your DXCC already?
No, I'm at 80 countries,
Oh, okay.
but I do have a couple of gems in there
That's
that I'm
about, I
pretty
would say
happy
that's
with.
about 70 countries more than me.
Yeah, I've got a couple of really good ones that I'm pretty excited about. I got Madagascar on 15 meters
Nice.
CW a few
Wow.
months ago, and that was pretty sweet.
You know, when
That,
you look at the map of the Earth, I think Madagascar is the exact opposite
yep.
location of where I am. So yeah,
Yeah, it's like
that's pretty far.
8,900 miles from me, and on 100 watts in a wire, I was pretty stoked about that
Wow.
contact. And
Yeah.
then my best voice contact is St. Helena Island on 15 meters, and I broke a huge pileup, which was unbelievable.
Where
The
is
guy
that?
actually, yeah, it was crazy. It was his name is Bruce Salt,
Hmm.
and he's Z Delta 7W, and he actually stopped the pileup per se and asked me what I was running. And when I
Hmm.
told him I was running 100 watts into a half wave end fed, he couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Yeah, I just had a direct pipeline to St. Helena. It was
Where is
really
St.
crazy.
Helena? I can't. I
It's
don't
off the
know.
west coast of Africa.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's literally the only way you can get there is by boat.
And
So
he stopped the
I,
pile up to ask you what you're running.
yeah, it was crazy. He was so loud, and like I said, I got him on the first call on voice, and he actually asked me what I was running because
Oh
I
wow.
think he probably thought I was running too many, too much, too many watts.
Too
It was
loud.
it was crazy. And then I sent him a QSL card just because I was curious how long it would take to get it back, and it took almost 7 months to get it.
Wow. 7 months.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was crazy, but that
So
was
can you tell me about? Well, I'm going to pronounce it here. LTOTA or
it's
LTOTA.
LTOTA. Yeah, lunchtime on the
Lunchtime on
air.
the air. Tell me about that because you're probably
Yes.
the most in my Twitter sphere. You're the most famous lunchtime on the air person.
Yeah, I like to think that was my creation. So shortly after I finished CW Academy, yeah, I wanted to get on the air, and I wanted to, do something during lunch. And I was like, well, do something. And during lunch was a great opportunity because I work right in downtown St. Paul, and there's a park just like I think it's like 2 miles from my office, and it's up on a hill overlooking the Mississippi, which is really awesome because it's to the north and the south, and I think to the east it's flat, so it's pretty decent. It's up on a hill, and so I was like, well, what can I do? So I just packed up my KX3 and a portable antenna, and I went and sat up there and tried to get on the air, I guess. And I chased SOTA, I chased special event, I chased DX, whatever there was up there during that time. And then I just started tweeting about it, and it needed a name. So I just called it, Lunchtime on the Air. And
Lunchtime
then
on
I
the air.
abbreviated it
Yes.
LTOTA, which is really funny because people have said, lunchtime is one word, right? And so,
Yes.
an LOTA didn't have the same
Yeah.
kind of ring, I guess. So,
No,
so yeah,
I think of lunchtime on the air, LTOTA, not
yeah.
LOTA. But you mentioned CW Academy, so tell me how you got into CW Ops
Yeah, yeah, for
and how
sure.
that spurred the interest.
Yeah, so when I started, obviously it was all voice. I did a little digital, but I did all voice, and I was hearing a ton of DX, and a lot of it I couldn't break pileups. I just wasn't running enough power. I live in an HOA, so that's a whole nother story about my antenna, but I do have an antenna up that I actually got approved by the HOA. I think I'm one of the only hams on earth that's actually successfully fought the HOA.
That's quite an accomplishment. You need an award just for that.
Yeah, no doubt. I should write a book on how to fight the HOA. But anyway, so, it was just the level of frustration that I was having with chasing DX on voice was getting to the point where I was getting a little frustrated. And I had a really good friend, Art Woods, K6AFW, and he is a hardcore CW guy. I think he's got his DXCC on like 6 bands and like all this kind of stuff. And he's like, you have to learn CW. You got to learn the code. And so I don't exactly remember how I discovered CW Academy, but somewhere along the lines, somebody pointed me in that direction. And, I signed up for it, and, I got in. I think I was waitlisted, and I got in, 3 to 4 months later, and I went through the program, and, I guess that's history now. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, if you put in the time, the effort, you do the homework assignments, you will learn the code. I mean, you will learn it. You will come out the other end knowing, all the letters, all the numbers, some pro signs, and then it's just up to you to continue on.
Yeah. What I love about CW Ops is their focus on head copy and just making you listen at a speed that's uncomfortable.
Yep.
So that when you back it down to an actual speed that you would use, it seems easier. And
yep. And I would say, I know I've heard you say that your head copy is not where you'd like it to be. And I can honestly say the same thing. I don't have any issues writing things down for sure, but I'm not a good head copier. I just get lost in the shuffle. Same with, I think, a lot of people, that are, I guess, newer. I'm far from an expert.
Yeah.
So, I still consider myself a new CW operator, but, it gets a little better every day. The more you're on the air, the better you get.
Yeah. I like your honesty on Twitter as well. You talk about how you'd have trouble with H's and S's and ones and J's. And
it's funny. Anything with 4 dits, I have a really hard time with. So H, the number 4, a 1. I for some reason I just have a really hard time stringing those 4 dits together. I either send 3 or 5.
Yeah.
I just for some reason cannot send 4, and that's getting a little bit better, but it's still I still have a lot of trouble with.
I find that I do okay with exchanges. Once I know the exchange, I can get into a rhythm, and then it becomes a lot less difficult. But then if I just hop into a rag chew, I get really lost fast.
Yeah. And I've tried the rag chew aspect, but I am just not that guy.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. I literally have gotten, I actually sent an email to a guy after our QSO, and I literally apologized because I'm like, that had to have just been absolutely excruciating for you. And he was like, no, it was great. I'm happy for the contact. So, the Morse community is pretty rock solid in my opinion.
Yeah. And how many CW Ops classes have you been through so far?
Just one.
Just the one?
Just one.
Okay. Because
I keep going back and forth on whether or not I want to go to 2 or not. And I probably will. I had signed up for 2, and there were some issues there, and I couldn't continue with it. So I just I dropped it and wasn't able to finish.
You seem a lot more experienced than just one class of CW Ops. I would imagine that when you do start 2 or go forward to 3, you'll have a leg up on everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can send pretty well, and I can copy as long as I have a pen in my hand. So we'll see what happens.
So another cool thing about you is that I find this amazing. You're a 3 times Shack Sloth. So that's 3,000 plus points chasing SOTA summits on the air.
Yeah.
Tell us how you did this.
And 80% of that is QRP.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did you do this? I really can't imagine doing.
Yeah.
I would imagine chasing for 5-10 years and not being able to get 3,000 plus points.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I looked in my overall log today just to see how many chases that is. So currently I'm at 3,311 points, and it's 641 chases that I've done.
Wow.
Successfully, which is pretty cool, I guess. It's 641 on CW and 350 on voice. So I mean, you can tell right there that Morris is king when it comes to SOTA.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I think it was just I discovered early on in my CW career, I guess, that SOTA was the ultimate vehicle for a new CW operator to get on the air. And I say that because the spotting network is second to none, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, with SOTA Alert, you get on there and, you get a call sign of the activator and you get, what frequency they're on. So right there, you're ahead of the game. So if you scroll over there, all you have to do is just listen for that call sign.
Yeah.
And, you send your call sign, they respond with a simple, RST and a thank you and a 7-3, and you do the same and you're out. So it's very little intimidation, in my opinion. And a large portion of the SOTA activators are world-class operators. I mean, they're the best in the business, at CW. So, and they want to work you, so, and they're not going 30, 40 words a minute. They're going 18, 20, 21. So it's very doable for a newbie. Mm-hmm. And, my first few chases, I was sending 13 words a minute, and they would slow down, or they would send at their speed, but they would give a lot of spacing back. So it's just an awesome way for a new operator to get on the air. And I think for me, when I started doing Lunchtime on the air, and I started having some success where I was going out, I was working my lunch around, the alerts, when these guys were going to be out there, and then I started hearing them and started working them. The points, they just added up. I mean, it was crazy how fast I went from, well, I mean, just it's interesting. In 2 years, I have some data here somewhere. In 2 years, I worked 27 summits from 6/18/2016 to 2/11/18. I worked 27 summits. Wow. And since then, I've worked 600 and some odd summits, and the majority of that is all CW, and it's just because of CW, because so many of those guys are running Morris anyway, because the rigs are small, and it's just the success ratio is higher.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, and 3,000 points it's a lot, but I mean, there's a couple of chasers in the 150,000 point range. Wow. Which is crazy.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, but I mean,
I think I'm at something like 75 points.
Well, you need to
combine
chase
and activating. I think I'm at 2, but chasing I am at I'm guessing around 60, high 60s to 70s. And I actually even learned just last night that one of the mountains the peaks that I activated has been marked private property and is now, operators are banned from going there. And they were even talking about removing anyone who has activated that peak, removing their points. So
that's no good.
So I think I have 1 activator point now.
I have 41, so I'm not.
But the Rag Ridge peak, the second one I ever did, they're removing from, they're saying do not access this peak anymore.
Was that the one that you did with Rex?
It's the one I did with Dan.
Okay.
Dan AI6XG.
Okay.
And incidentally, he was a CW Ops classmate. So.
Oh, cool.
We both went up there. And I think I just stuck to voice, but I did do a summit to summit CW with that one.
Nice.
But yes, that was my next question for you. do you do activations as well? You mentioned that your peaks are 2 hours away.
So. Yeah. So I've done quite a few in Minnesota, but, my wife and I travel quite a bit. So I do sometimes, I guess, take a radio along. So yeah, I've done activations in South Dakota, Nevada, and Hawaii. Those are my 3 states so far, besides my own, and hoping to add California to the list in October. Nice. I'll be out to California.
What part of California?
What's that?
What part of California?
So my brother lives in Stockton, so I'll be in Stockton.
So you'll be close.
Yeah, and then he owns a house up in Tahoe, so we're going to spend some time up in Tahoe as well.
So you're going to be in Rex's region.
Okay. Nice.
And my region as well. But
yeah,
Dan, Rex, and I are kind of, Rex is in the Bay Area, and Dan and I are kind of Central California.
Okay.
So
maybe and Rex, it's funny because Rex was my very first CW SOTA contact ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Well, maybe we can do a joint activation if it all lines up. I remember one video that you posted where you were talking about your setup and what you do during your free time. Can you share some of the struggles you've had with Lunchtime on the air, or any type of other operation where you've just had a hard time getting out there?
Yeah, I mean, luckily with Lunchtime on the air, the only thing that really, and I've got that set up pretty tuned. I've got 3 QRP radios, so I'll bring one of those, and I've stuck with. I have an alpha antenna FMJ, which is the full metal jacket, and it's a vertical antenna. I think it's 6 to 80 meters, and so I use that, pretty exclusively. I do have multiple other antennas, but that's the one gets the nod for Lunchtime on the air. So, I mean, really the only thing that I have had, is if it's the weather's crappy and I have to tear down, or the bands are just bad, and I can't get out. I always call CQ on 20 meters on 14066 all the time if it's available, just to see, where I'm hitting the beacon, which way I'm going, that kind of thing. And, that's, I'd say I've been pretty lucky on Lunchtime on the air, and, with portable operations as a whole, I do have, I'm nowhere near the antenna expert that some of these guys are, but, I've had really good luck with my setups.
Yeah.
So
I've seen some of the pictures you've posted as well with your alpha antenna.
Yeah.
I was actually considering getting that one.
What's that?
I was actually considering getting the alpha FMJ.
It's nice. It's heavy. So it's not a good backpacking antenna, or if you're going to carry it up the side of the mountain, that would be terrible. But I mean, for, like working out of your car, or, like a car camping type situation or something like that, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I've worked a ton of DX with it. I've worked Hawaii from Minnesota on 3 watts with it, so it's definitely a good antenna.
Yeah.
And for me anyway.
It sounds like you really have it dialed in as well. So I don't imagine you'll have too many kind of gear failures or struggles in your operating, since it's pretty much the same deployment every time and very consistently practiced.
Yep. And then, I have go bags set up, which is pretty sad. So depending on which radio I want to bring, I have, a bag for each, so it's very rare that I, have a gear failure. That I've forgotten a wire before or whatnot, which has been, kind of a bummer, but, I've got a couple batteries that I move between bags and, that kind of thing.
I'm kind of,
which rig I'm bringing.
I make the mistake of always trying something new when I want to do something important, like a contest or
sure,
or a field deployment, and then I'll end up not being practiced enough in this new thing. Maybe it's a new antenna or a new setup with the rig, new tuner, or something like that. Yeah. And then something will inevitably fail.
Yeah.
I don't get all the context that I wish I could get. I should have just stuck with the thing I know works, right?
Right. And that's so I very rarely stray from that. if, when I did my activation, my SOTA activation in Hawaii, I did that, I tested the setup beforehand, to make sure that it would work and figure out how to deploy it and that kind of thing. And that turned out to be just a crazy day anyway, but it was fun.
Yeah. Our first contact was California to Hawaii.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And I was so glad to hear you. It was very faint, I remember, but I said, that's definitely Eric.
Yeah, I think I was running 5 watts at the time.
I think I gave you a 229.
Yep, that's right. I actually looked it up, 229, and you were loud. So yeah. I think I was doing a park activation during that contact, and I had done a SOTA activation in Mauna Kea, which was my first CW activation, which was insane.
Yeah, I bet.
I bit off way too more than I could chew there.
Yeah, I talked to, I forget who, I think it was Rex. I told that I started sending CQ SOTA on CW on our activation, and then I stopped and thought, what am I doing? I better stop now before I get a pileup. Yeah,
I did the same thing. Only I did it, because I was there and I got approval to do it. And it, once I hit the RBN hole and it was spotted, it was lights out. I mean, I had a huge pileup. Nice. And I was like, oh my God, I have literally no idea what to do with this. So I just kind of listened for
kind of puzzled through it.
Yeah, it was great because, I was new. It was my first CW activation. I ran 13 words a minute, and all these guys slowed down for me, except for one guy at JA station. He would not slow down, and I couldn't pick him up at all. He was like 30 words a minute, and I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Fast. So, but I got the JA, which I was pretty happy with. Yeah. But the rest of it, I couldn't pick up.
That is actually a very paralyzing barrier for many people. Is the first time that they run. Not chase, but when they run and get a bunch of people and again, going back to CW ops, that's something they train you in. We do Morse runner as practice, and you're used to just getting all these different calls at the same time. You learn how to isolate one of them and repeat the first part that you got, and then see if they come back. Hope everyone drops off instead of just bombarding you over and over again. And then just
and that's 100. You're 100% right. I mean, the one thing that I discovered during that activation and further or activation since is with the SOTA community. I'll say the chasers are they're amazing. You start to work another guy, and they will wait. They'll slow down. They'll do whatever it takes to get those points. And, my first couple activations, there was a lot of asking for repeats, like a lot. And, it was pretty great how patient people were. But I mean, when I was in Hawaii and I called CQ, and like I said, once it was spotted on the SOTA alerts page, when I heard that wall of CW coming back to me, I was like, I have no idea what to do with this. But luckily I picked out, I think it was like, a W0 station. And, that one 0, I obviously know since it's in my call, and I picked that one up right away. So we went with that guy and we just kept going, and it worked really well. But it's very intimidating.
So since then, do you think it's gotten easier dealing with pileups?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my last SOTA station, or my last SOTA activation, I did a 1-pointer in Minnesota, in southeast Minnesota, and I worked 45 stations in a little less than an hour. Wow. And I was like, my God, these people are super, they want that 1 point. I mean, it was crazy. But, for the first few minutes of the activation, I mean, there was a pretty good pileup. But, I think once you just kind of learn how to handle it, I guess, it does become easy. And then the cool thing about it is 9 times out of 10, it's the same people. Yeah. There's such a dedicated chasing crowd that, you kind of hear the same calls over
such as yourself. You're one of the dedicated chasers.
I liked, I know, like when I've worked Steve, WG0AT, he always says, good morning, Eric. So he knows who I am. There's a couple other guys that that will come back to me with my name. So, I don't know if they can just hear my call, or they obviously know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes I think, like, for me, I know that I've picked out calls that I know, because I know that they're going to get in and out, quick. Like, I can send this guy his information. He's going to send me his information. And even if I make a mistake, he knows probably what I mean anyway. So he's going to, just move on, not make me repeat or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if I send a 4 that ends up being, like 6 dits and whatever else it ends up, he knows kind of what I meant. So we get there.
Let me play a little clip from your YouTube channel. You have a channel here. It's just your name, Eric Phillip. And you have a few videos here just describing some of your thoughts. This is what I actually imagined Hamdom Thoughts to be, is just me talking about the stuff by myself. But since then, I've had a lot of great conversations with other hams, and so it's kind of morphed into something else. But you do have a channel here where you're talking about setting up for lunchtime on the air, and this is called vlog number 3. Let's listen here.
Okay.
Hi everyone, lunchtime on the air. So we've got a lot going on here. We're trying, I picked a new spot in the park, so I'm hoping that I get a little bit more light, so we don't get that weird dimming thing. Just setting up the station as usual. I got the FMJ vertical out the window, or out the car door. I did bring the LNR mountain topper. I got the 5-bander with today. So this one does 15, 17, 20, 30, and 40 meters. Also runs on that.
Oops, it just kind of cut off there, but I wanted to ask you about your gear, because you do talk about that quite a bit. And I always associated you with the KX3 and the Alpha Antenna FMJ, but in this video, you were actually showing us the MTR 5B, was it?
Yeah, I have the mountain topper. I have a 5B, and then when the new 3B with the LCD panel came out, I had to get one of those too, because that thing is ridiculously small. Yeah, so I have those 3 QRP radios. I have the 2 mountain toppers, and then I have a KX3, and those are my portable rigs. And then I do have a home setup as well, but those are the ones that I take out with travel with, or whatever it is. And I kind of have them in a rotation, I guess, even though it's unofficial. But yeah, they're unbelievable radios, all 3 of them.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time last year, 2019, I saw you out more with the mountain topper than the KX3, which makes sense. Sure. I mean, if you're just going CW, there's no need to bring all that extra functionality all the time. And
right, and it's those. I don't know if you've ever used one of those rigs, but they're insanely cool for how small they are. The receive is amazing. They're simple to use, and they just work.
Yeah, a couple of people have said that already on this podcast.
Yeah,
I think we should
incredible.
We should get some royalties.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how many times I've tweeted about them. I feel like I should get something for it as well, but whatever.
LNR Precision needs to acknowledge the advertising here.
Yeah, they are seriously. They're unbelievable.
They are great. Yeah, I've only seen them. I've never actually played with one. I've seen hams with them, using them, and yeah, I think I might pick one up one of these days.
I mean, when you consider you can literally talk all over the world on a radio that's the size of a deck of playing cards, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And I've worked, some DX with that little mountain topper from the park. Worked all over the Caribbean and Hawaii. And I mean, Hawaii is pretty far for us. It's about 4,500 miles on 3 watts, which is
amazing.
Which is just crazy.
Yeah. So any exciting plans coming up? I know that we're kind of locked down with travel and all that, but you have traveled quite a bit. And just wondering if you had any things you want to do in
Yeah, so we actually just got back from Vegas. My wife and I went out last weekend to go hiking in the desert. I didn't bring a radio this time, but so that was kind of fun. And in October, we are heading to California. My brother lives out in the Stockton area, like I said, and he has a home up in Tahoe. And the plan is to fly into Sacramento, and then we're going to go hopefully down to Sequoia for a couple days. I know that it seems like the entire state of California is on fire. So I hope that that pans out. So I'm planning on bringing my mountain topper and a wire antenna out there. I'm hoping to, at least get on the air in some way, while I'm out there. And so that's probably the biggest thing. We've got 2 weeks scheduled for out in that area.
Okay.
We were going to go after the California portion. We were going to fly out to Florida and go to the Bahamas for a few days, but that fell through. So we're going to stay out west, and that trip is evolving kind of as we speak. And, we want to get back to Hawaii. We love Hawaii, and I love operating from Hawaii. So
all of these places that you're planning, you do intend to bring your radio and try to get an activation or some kind of operation.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to bring my mountain topper with for sure to California. And, luckily I have an incredibly supportive wife who likes to hike. She doesn't mind, sitting on a rock and looking at the scenery from the top of a mountain. So, she'll sit there as long as we need to get those 4 contacts. So, I'm pretty lucky.
No interest in actually becoming a ham though?
No, but that's okay. Yeah. She kind of has her own gig, but she thinks it's cool. I mean, I relish her with my DX victories, and she's like, wow, that's great. And I'm like, do you realize how far Madagascar is from here? And then, I think it makes a little bit more, sense to her about actually how cool it was.
I'm like, honey, I got, in some DX country.
I have to shake her a little bit. Do you realize how cool that was?
But that's the farthest I've ever reached. And
right. 8,900 miles on 100 watts.
Kind of understand why you're so jumping up and down.
But we don't have any children, so we travel. And, we did Italy in November, and I tried to visit the Vatican station, but I couldn't get in. I wanted to visit there. They do allow you to operate from there as long as you can get in.
I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, so there's a Vatican station. I think it's H8OV. And I did see the antenna there. They have a huge beam on the side of the Vatican, and they've been running a lot of FT8. But they're big CW guys, and they seem to be running a lot of FT8 right now. But Vatican City is a DX entry, so it's pretty cool.
So you could just go in there, provided that they were open, and actually activate a DX for a lot of people. You
could, yeah. You'd have to get the call, but yeah, if you got approval to do it, you could certainly do it.
Wow, cool. Now I have something else to think about if ever I go to Italy. I've been talking to the wife about possibly going there again.
That was amazing. Beautiful country. The people were friendly, and the food was unbelievable.
So what do you wish you had known when you started out, now that you've gotten
I wish I would have gotten my general and my extra a lot quicker than I did. And I wish I would have gone down the CW paths way sooner than I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember going through the cassette tapes of learning CW.
Yeah.
And just it didn't engage me at all. I just felt like it was a hurdle I needed to cross to get to general at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to learn on my own a couple of times, and I couldn't do it. And
that's why, just like what you're saying, you need something like SOTA or people to talk to, and that really drives the motivation to pick it up quickly.
Yeah, and I think one thing that really was a big deal for me too is, I have a Twitter account, which we've mentioned a few times, and, I started tweeting about the learning process. And it was amazing how many people would respond with, "Oh my God, I'm having the same issue. So I'm glad it's not just me," or whatever it was. Or, and then you'd get people that were, super active CW operators, and they'd be like, "Okay, try this." And it was such a supportive kind of process that it really helped me learn, just to know that I wasn't the only person having these problems, and I wasn't the only person that was, having success, I guess, to a certain extent. So it was really cool to share that journey with my Twitter followers, who, I interact with a lot of them on a daily basis. And, I consider a lot of these guys my friends, even though I've never met them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I actually want to have a talk in a future podcast about how clubs look these days.
Yeah.
Like for me, my club is virtual. My club has always been Twitter, Slack, and to some extent YouTube.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk about that, but it's good you bring that up. And I will link your Twitter handle,
Yeah.
your link
that'd be great.
in the show notes, as well as your channel. But is there anything else you want to mention or plug?
No, I like I said, Dennis, I appreciate being on. I've enjoyed the podcast so far, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much for spending the time with us. I really wanted to talk to you because you embody someone who's really, like I said in the very beginning, you have that ham radio grit. You have that persistence that you just are always out there, and it's very inspiring to me.
Well, I appreciate that. I know some of your other guests have been, like huge into the electronic side and that kind of thing. And I'm just not that guy. So what I've tried to do with me is be on the air, be present, and just be a really good operator. So that's what I try to do. And, I think that, there's a benefit to that as well.
Yeah. And one of your videos, one of my favorite ones of yours, you talk about being a good operator.
Yeah.
Just getting out there and being courteous and how to be a good operator. And I mean, for sure.
I get DX fever like anybody does, but, I think at the end of the day, I really try to pull that back and just try to make sure that, I'm mindful of what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, Eric, thank you very much again.
Of course.
And
anytime.
I think I'll call it here. I keep trying for 30 minutes and goes over.
Well, you're talking to a Minnesotan, and we can talk. So now we're going to have the hour-long goodbye, because that's a standard thing.
Oh, is that a thing?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Eric.
Of course.
I'll catch you on Twitter.
Wonderful, Dennis. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Once again, you've been listening to Hamdom Thoughts. I'm Dennis, your host. We'll see you again next time.